Hello everyone and welcome to Aviation Check. In this video I would like to talk to you about 3 essential points that you should have in mind throughout your process of becoming a pilot, before we get into more technical subjects for the next video. So I'll be covering some current challenges facing now in the aviation industry, some key considerations for those seeking a career in the aviation, and finally, how to make your dream of flying a reality. My name is Mikael Yepes. I've been an airline pilot over a decade now, so let's not waste any more time and let's get started. The aviation industry is facing many challenges, among which I would like to highlight 3 of them that you can hear repeatedly in this one. The first one, fuel prices. Fuel alone is around 45% of operating cost of an aircraft. In many cases, it's the reason why airlines have bankrupt, and this is why operators implement strict fuel policies and work together with manufacturers to make aircraft more efficient in order to reduce fossil-based fuel consumption. At the same time, we benefit from a CO2 emission reduction and being more ecological. Of course, this doesn't affect only airlines, but the whole industry, increasing the costs to everyone and making it more difficult to have a profitable business. This brings us to the second challenge, the dream of many to become a pilot. The main concern for reaching our dream has always been the cost of the course. This career has always been expensive, and starting it in some places, the return of investment is not really worth it. However, there are many ways in order to reduce this investment to make it feasible, and we will talk about it at the end of the video. As time goes on, prices continue to increase, and as we talk in the first challenge, the fuel price adds up into it. The fees and costs for the theoretical part of the training, as it's not directly affected by the fuel or spare parts, and as it's getting more digital every day, are quite stable. As you may imagine, the main challenge would be the flight times, which is directly affected by the fuel price. This last challenge have made some of us, without guidance or prior knowledge about this world, feel overwhelmed about the high prices and finally give up on this dream, which is totally understandable. But don't worry, we are here to support you and together find many ways in order to overcome any obstacle. Because all of this and other reasons, another challenge has risen in the industry, the lack of pilots. But is there really a need for more pilots in the world? Well, based on the statistic and projection that you might find around, yes, there is indeed a lack of pilot or pilot shortage, as they say. However, we need to correct this statement and say that there is a lack of qualified pilots to join the airline sector. You will see that airlines are always looking for type-rated pilots with a minimum 1,000 hours or 1,500 hours. United States, for example, in order to join an airline, you don't need type rating, but you need an ATP certificate, which means you need at least 1,500 hours with other requirements. In other parts of the world, there is no such restriction. You may join an airline with a CPL and 200 hours and the ATPL frozen if it does applies in your country, but this is a risk for the airline, as the success rate during the training is lower than expected, and airlines, they lose their investment. So in Europe, some airlines, what they do, which in my opinion is unacceptable, as they are the one in need, they make pilots pay to fly to get the type rating and 500 hours on type, and at the end without any assurance of a job. This unfortunately degrades our condition and opportunities. So other airlines, which I believe is the right way, they might hire you without experience, but you will be bounded. This means that you are legally obliged to work with them for a period of time, and if you want to leave, you should only pay back the remaining fees that they have spent during your training. But again, this is still a risk for the airline, as they can lose their investment. That's why the recruitment process is very strict in order to ensure that the success rate is higher. On the other hand, other aviation sectors like executive, corporate, agricultural, etc., they don't have this problem of pilot shortage. They have enough pilots to cover the demand. Some of these pilots, they use these aviation sectors in order to gain experience and eventually join an airline. But most of them, they prefer to avoid joining an airline for different reasons or simply personal preference, making the demand to remain low and getting into this aviation even more complicated than it already is. When seeing these issues with experienced eyes, it is understandable that young aspiring pilots lose interest or even quit their dream, increasing the pilot shortage even more. It has always been a challenging career, but nothing is impossible. And we are here to unveil the different ways on how to achieve our goal and help all of these new aspiring pilots to reach a dream. The next point that I would like to talk with you about is to give you some tools or advice to consider when pursuing this career. Of course, keep in mind that this doesn't apply to everyone. It will depend where you live, your financial situation, and many other factors. However, most of the time, it will be the case. So initially, we need to know that you might need to leave home. In most of the cases, especially for airline pilots, you will be carried to move to somewhere else. For example, the base where the airlines operate. In many cases, if you want to be part of a major airline, you will have to be an expat. There are some lucky ones that they are able to fly while living at their birth home, but not many. And other pilots, they reach to have a commuting contract, but still, you need to be away for a period of time. Well, just keep that in mind. Another advice that I would like to share with you is that in this career you will have to be in a constant learning. What you don't use, you lose. This is true in any career. If you are not constantly studying and refreshing your knowledge, you will forget your theory, your policies, or even critical procedures. In the beginning of this career, we know that it's very difficult how to study because there is so much information that we don't know where to start, right? And manuals are very specific. They are not like a book. There is a way on how to read a manual, which you will learn how to read a manual here in Aviation Check. So if you want to be notified, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Patience. Patience is a great virtue. In this career, everything takes time. From getting your license, when you are applying for a job, takes time even to receive the first reply, sometimes up to 6 months to start the process. So the main thing is to always be ready and prepare for anything. Last but not least, we need to understand that we are humans and we make mistakes. The important is that we recognize these errors or these mistakes and we correct them. Based on this, one of the most important things to have always present is our attitude. Our attitude towards everything, how to communicate to everybody, how to express your idea without being rude, to accept your mistakes, to keep a will to learn from these mistakes, listen to others. This is a very important point that airlines are always looking for. They are always seeking for that. They want a person, a profile that is adaptable to their standards with a good attitude. Keep that in mind. And if you are interested about this, comment below and we'll make a video about this subject. Now what probably most of you have been waiting for. How to really become a pilot. Well, I'm sure that you will be able to find a lot of information on the internet about this. And this will change depending on the country and the region where you live. But there is something in common, is that all of you will have to go to a flight school. And unfortunately, flight school usually will never tell you that there are other ways or paths on how to achieve the same goal. It's normal, it's a business. But here now I'll tell you some other path that you could take. In order to make it relevant for everyone in the world, there are a few steps that you need to take and understand. First, usually flight school will never tell you all the ways that there are to become a pilot. As we already say, it is a business.
It's normal, and they will want you to do everything with them.
2. You need to know and understand all the licensing regulation of your country. You need to search for them and read them. Usually all will be based on the ICAO Annex 1, but most probably there will be some difference depending on your country. For example, in Europe, you have to follow the EASA Part FCL with the EU number 1178 of 2011. In US, it will be the FAR 61. Colombia is the RAC 61. Venezuela, for example, is the RAF 60. So you need to search and understand it very well. 3. Find a flight school that will give you flexibility in terms of study, time, and payment. The school where you're gonna go will not determine your worth as a pilot, as a university does for companies. So find the school that will be the cheapest for you, the easier to go, and the fastest as well for you. One thing that is important to highlight, even though if the school where you're gonna go, it doesn't matter, is that the type of license does matter. If it's an ICAO license or FAA or EASA license, be sure that your country is at least ICAO. This you will know during your regulation reading, as we say on the step number 2. But if you can get, for example, an FAA license from US or EASA license from Europe, even better. Try to do it. 4. Your goal is to get your license as fast as possible. Even if you do it license by license, in some places it's called modular, or everything in one shot, as we could say, integrated. The idea is that based on your possibilities is to get your license as soon as possible, to get into the market or into the industry. This is an individual career, okay? So there is no problem, and do not compare to your colleagues, to other friends, as everyone has different situation. So just do your best at your own time. 5. The important step is to start. Do not get afraid about the high prices. Just start, for example, with at least the theory training, which will take time. So during that time, you can continue saving for your next step and so on, and you will go at your rhythm. This is why we told you to find a school with flexibility that will allow you to go step by step. Now, in order not to make this video longer, I will give you only 2 possible paths that you can take after you have completed your research on how to become a pilot. The main objective is to get a CPL license with an ATPL frozen if it's applicable in your country, a multi-engine rating if it's applicable, but very important, instrument rating and an English proficiency level of at least 4. This will allow you to get legally paid and join an airline if you wish to do so. Now, for pilots that would like to join an airline in Europe, you will have to do as well an MCC, a multi-crew cooperation course, and a JOC, or they say a jet orientation course. So the first path is that if you have the financial situation to do everything in one place, this will allow you to do everything as soon as possible. But if you could do it, don't waste time. On average, it takes around 1.5 years up to 2 years to do the whole course up to the CPL license. But if you have a good financial situation, you could do it even in less than a year. So the advice is, if you can do it as fast as you can. The second path, it's a bit longer, but due to its flexibility, will allow you to achieve your dream, even reduce your expenses significantly. Regardless of where you are in the world, the first objective is to get your private pilot license. This will allow you to start building hours even outside of the school. From here, it starts getting more complex as there are many options, but I will give you a few of them. One option is that if you are in a country with high general aviation, you could try to join that well and start fly with others to build hours and experience. Another option is to share your expenses. This means that you could rent an aircraft with one of your colleagues and fly together. This will reduce your expenses by almost half. Some people, what they do is they travel to other countries, like for example the US, they convert the private pilot license and they apply this option. or simply they go to other flight school where the flight time is cheaper. Especially if in that country you have family or friends that could help you with accommodation, this will reduce your expenses as well. While exploring any of these or more options that you could have, you need to see the opportunities that present to you and start investing on your license. Like doing the multi-engine class rating, the instrument rating, and eventually once you reach all the requirements, you go to a flight school and get your commercial pilot license, which is the main objective of our goal. If you're in Europe, you will have to do some extra courses if you wish to join an airline, like the multi-crew cooperation course, jet orientation course, as we already say. You will find a lot of information and help about it in a next video here in Aviation Check. In the United States, if you want to be an airline pilot, you will have to build at least 1500 hours to get your ATP. So you could explore the possibility of being a flight instructor if you like it, or if you haven't found any other way on how to build hours. As you can see, there are many ways and paths on how to achieve our dreams, and which one to choose will depend on your unique situation and your decisions. I believe that now you can see why a lot of
People are having hard time on reaching their dream.
as the only info that they can get is from a friend or a colleague that did the same, and schools rarely will tell you all of these possibilities. But that's why we're here, to build a community where we can help each other on finding ways, new paths and opportunities to reach our goal. Now to those who have reached the dream of being a pilot, please tell us how you did it in the comments below. To be part of this community, join our Discord server where you will be able to directly communicate with others and get the help that you want. New advices or ideas in order to achieve the dream, or simply give any help you can to others. In order to pass the verification on Discord, or if you like this video, subscribe. If you want to keep updated, hit the notification bell and give us your thumb up. Please leave in the comments below anything that we can do to improve, any questions, or anything that you would like us to talk about or you want to learn. I wish you all a good flight and happy landing. See you next time.